Husband barely speaking to me after I questioned his secretary's claims that my childhood best friend slash first boyfriend wrote her 12 years ago. Please read everything and don't comment based on the title. There are quite a few details that need to be known in this situation. I'd like to start off by saying I am a social worker and I currently work with teens. I'm compassionate, understanding, and patient, and I have gone through years of training to dedicate myself to helping others. I'm not someone who is judgmental or otherwise inconsiderate of others. My husband owns a local interior design company and has had the same secretary since he opened 3 years ago. We'll call her Katie. I've gotten to know Katie over the years, both from visiting hubby at work, but also from all the times that she would text my husband late at night when she was feeling anxious. I trust my husband wholeheartedly, and he has never been secretive with me about anything, including her. When it started happening, he was really weirded out and told me about it right away. She would text him first just about feeling anxious about her job performance, but over time, it began escalating to her sharing all of her anxieties and insecurities with him. After a few too many late night, I just need someone to talk to episodes. He told her that it was becoming unprofessional and that he wanted to help her out, but texting him at 1 a.m. was not okay. I'm not going to go into details of their conversations, but I just picked up on a lot of attention-seeking vibes. I work with troubled teens, most of whom are girls, and I know how they operate. Katie is 26. We are 28. I know we aren't too far apart in age, but a lot of her antics reminded me of the things my kids at work do. Lots of instances where she would say something self-deprecating, essentially to bait my husband into telling her that it wasn't true and that she was amazing. I just don't think anybody in their mid-20s should still be playing those games. And if they are, then they should be seeking help for a potential diagnosis and treatment. Anyway, my husband came home yesterday pretty upset. He sits me down and says he has to ask me something that might be upsetting. He asked me if my childhood best friend slash first boyfriend ever, let's call him Tim, sexually assaulted me. I had no idea why he would ask me that. I met Tim when I was 12. We became best friends and lost our virginities to each other when we were 15. It was consensual. He kept asking me if I was okay, and he was practically shaking with nerves the whole time. I was the one who wanted to have sex. And we had many conversations before we actually did. He was not capable of sexual assault. My husband proceeded to tell me that Katie came into work that day really off. He asked what was wrong, and she very casually said that she saw the man that assaulted her at a restaurant the night before and is still upset from seeing him. Up until then, he had no idea that she had been sexually assaulted. And according to him, she dropped it so casually, as if it was a common thing. She told him about how it happened when she was 14, and he was 2 years older. She described a scene at a party that, honest to God, sounded identical to a specific scene from the TV show Degrassi. She said that they were in court proceedings for years where he was found not guilty. Also the outcome of this assault on Degrassi. My husband asked who it was, and she said his name was Tim Jones. My husband knows about my relationship with Tim because he was around when Tim and I had our falling out. He looked him up on Facebook and showed a picture to Katie to confirm it was the same guy. It was more needed background. Tim and I dated from ages 15 to 18. After being friends for 3 years, he was my absolute best friend. Tim moved to a different town when we were starting grade 11. So at 16 years old, we stayed together and saw each other pretty much every weekend. He has a January birthday, so he was able to drive by the time he moved, which made it easier for us. We ended up having a falling out when we were 19 because we were no longer dating, but had remained close friends, but his new girlfriend was threatened by our friendship. He told me we needed to take a few steps back, so I hurtfully deleted him off Facebook, deleted his number, and haven't spoken to him in nearly 10 years. I would also like to add that Katie would have had no clue that he and I were involved because he and I don't have each other on social media. Photos have been deleted. He has a fresh Facebook account, and the one he had in high school is gone. Unless she remembered that he and I were together back then, which I doubt, I don't think she knew otherwise, but now my husband has told her. It just so happens that Katie is also from the town Tim moved to. We live in the next town over now. So I don't doubt that they could have crossed paths or been in the same social circles. She is the same age as Tim's sister. Maybe they were friends. I'm not sure. The ages also line up as Katie said she was 14 and he was 2 years older. But I am just having the hardest time believing her story because I know the kind of person Tim was back then, and I know the kind of person she is now. I feel sick that I am doubting a woman's story, but it just doesn't add up to me. Tim and I were dating at that time, and we literally saw each other every weekend. Our parents were friendly, so they trusted us to have rule-enforced sleepovers and stuff. I knew all of Tim's friends from his new school. I went to their parties, and at the end of the day, I knew what he was like sexually. He was not aggressive. He was patient and timid at that age. Katie said they were in court proceedings for years. Tim never went to court as long as I knew him. We told each other everything. I always knew where he was. It was the age when teens were just starting to get cell phones. We texted constantly. So when my husband told me all of this, he approached it with, "And I'm so sorry you never knew" attitude. This pissed me off, and I immediately questioned the story and suggested Katie was lying. This upset my husband, and he started throwing all kinds of "you're not the person I thought you were" spats at me, coming right down to the point that I have no right to be a social worker if I'm not going to believe women when they come forward saying they were assaulted. I proposed that maybe Katie had a big crush on him in high school, and he rejected her since he was dating me. And seeing him trigger her in such a monumental way that she had to make it out to be a bigger deal to justify her emotions, saying, "I saw the guy who rejected me in high school 12 years ago," shouldn't be something that sets a person off, so she makes the situation out to match her emotion. Quite honestly, it's pretty textbook. My husband and I are barely speaking today because I'm hurt at the things he said. He is disappointed that I am taking my access side. I don't know what to believe, and I'm not about to reach out to Tim after 10 years to ask about this. I'm bothered by Katie's story. I'm bothered to think that Tim might have kept this whole thing from me. And I'm bothered that my husband is immediately running to Katie's rescue and not considering my position of knowledge. This has turned into a huge fight between me and my husband when it doesn't even have anything to do with us. I'm so frustrated. Update. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your input on the situation that I posted last night. I appreciate those of you who understood my emotional position, and I also appreciate people who asked me to consider that perhaps Tim wasn't who I thought he was. I'd like to address that not believing. Her story had more to do with the fact that Tim and I were inseparable at the time that this took place, and I just had a hard time coming to terms with the idea that he was in court proceedings during our whole relationship. The parts where I said he wasn't capable of sexual assault were my own denials, which I addressed in my final paragraph, where I was emotionally shaken at the thought that he could have done something like that. And I never knew. I didn't believe her because I disliked her, and I also never even said that I didn't like her. She has always been pleasant with me, and I've never felt threatened by her. Annoyed that she took advantage of my husband's heart and would reach out to him in the middle of the night. Sure, but I never said that I disliked her as a person. Now, for the update. My husband just called me while he was out getting a coffee to apologize for the things he said to me and how he jumped on me for being suspicious of her story. Katie came into work today and told my husband that she has been ridden with anxiety ever since telling him what happened, because she did lie, having no idea that I was his girlfriend at the exact time that she described. And really, this is just proving how small this world is, because Tim and I lived about 45 minutes away from each other. And my husband and I only recently moved to that area to be closer to his work. So she had no reason to think that I had ties there as a teenager. Katie explained the real story to my husband. She was pressured into having sex by a guy who was 2 years older than her in high school. She said it didn't happen at a party like she described, but just while they were hanging out together. She said she wanted to take him to court, but knew there wouldn't be any evidence. So she didn't pursue it. The reason she lied was because she matched with the same guy on Tinder and actually went on a date with him the night she said she saw Tim. She said the date was fine, but she was unsure if she wanted to proceed because of their past and the emotions it brought up. She didn't want to tell my husband the truth about who this guy was, just in case they continued to date, because she didn't want my husband to think she was crazy for going back to him. She wanted my husband to know what was causing her emotions at work the other day, though. So that is when she made up that story. She said Tim was the first person who came to mind as someone who was 2 years older than her at their school. She wasn't expecting that my husband would know who he was because Tim doesn't live in the area anymore. Katie told my husband that she realizes how crazy she must seem for going on a date with him and that she won't be seeing him again. So there we go. My husband and I are just moving past this. Although her coming clean has made my husband upset that he was lied to, and is worried about her performance as an employee going forward. And for those wondering, she didn't know that I was suspicious of her story, And my husband offered all kinds of support because he did believe her. They didn't speak about it yesterday, and she came in today saying that she needed to come clean because my personal connection could have had my husband catching her in a lie, and she wanted to avoid that. So, there you have it. Thanks for all of your input.